Whoosh. Hi, I'm Kareen. Thank you for joining me today. Today I wanted to share with you some techniques I used to create some Valentine cards using a sheet out of the Sweet Safari card making workshop kit. I also used the Hearts background thin cuts and the Every Thank You January Stamp of the Month stamp set. I wanted to show you that you can expand the use of these products as to what it first appears, so let's get started. I first started fussy cutting the animal images out while leaving a white edge along the image. I used a piece of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece of the red dotted paper, and I attached it to the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card base. I used Tombow permanent adhesive to adhere it. Next, I used the die cut that I cut out of white cardstock and adhered it using the dual tip multi-bond glue pen to attach it. I used the larger of the hearts from the negative of the die cut to stamp on with candy apple ink, and then I used the small heart and the small word of you. I then used the line of dots and the words so much inside the card. Since I only wanted 3 dots showing, I used a scrap paper to block the other dots. Using 3D foam tape, I adhered the heart to the card and used my scissors to help me remove the backing. At this point, I realized that I had a smudge of ink on the edge of the heart and decided to remove the heart and distress the edges with the ink. I did this using my mini ink blending tool. It was a happy accident since it gave me more dimension to the card. I then replaced it on the card and adhered the toucan that I had fussy cut out earlier and added it with foam tape. I then folded the card in half and used my bone folder to crease the card. And there you have it, a sweet little card for Valentine's Day using the Sweet Safari bulk paper, using the Thank You January Stamp of the Month stamp set and the Hearts background thin cut. The next card, I used my rubber mat with the die along with plate A and B to emboss the design of the die onto a piece of white cardstock that I had cut out. I then ran it through my die cutting machine. I wanted to use up the negative of the pattern paper from my fussy cutting to create an edge so it was not wasted. Since the size of it was not planned, I had cut my white cardstock that I embossed to fit within inside it. I used my all-purpose mat to apply my Tombow permanent adhesive and the rub and remove eraser to remove the glue boogers along the edges. I like being able to just erase any glue runoff off of the mat. Next, I used the speech bubble with the word thanks and used the flip side of it to create a speech bubble with my ink pad onto a scrap of cardstock. I then used my heat tool to make sure that it was dry. I rubbed my anti-static pouch over it and then stamped the little heart along with the small word you with Versamark ink and then used white superfine embossing powder on top. I used a small brush to brush off any stray embossing powder and then I heated it with my heat tool to melt it. I then fussy cut out the speech bubble. Since the cardstock I was using was not as large as the card front, I wanted to fill in the empty space at the top and at the bottom. So I used the different sizes of hearts to stamp along the edges. I then applied the cardstock and paper and then added the fussy cut monkey and speech bubble using the 3D foam tape. I stamped the reverse side of the heart stamp in the middle of the right side of the card, inside with candy apple ink and an assortment selection of the words you scattered around it. The next card I created, I used the Hearts background thin cuts to create a stencil with candy apple ink and the mini ink blending tool. I started the Hearts background thin cuts taped to the front of my card base using painter's tape and my ink blending tool to apply the ink in the openings of the die. I used a sponge eyeshadow tool to do the same for the tiny openings. I then removed the tape carefully and wiped off the die with a damp cloth. Using the word "You" stamp, I again stamped with the candy apple ink on the large heart with it overhanging the heart. I then heat dried it for the next step. I rubbed my anti-static bag over the image before stamping on the striped word "You" using Versamark ink to apply the white embossing pattern and heat setting it. Because I had not been careful when inking, I had a line that showed up that I had to cover with the line dots from the stamp set and added it throughout the design. The next card is simply done by tracing the die with a red pen and filling the little hearts in. I then added the words "so much" on the large heart with candy apple ink. Inside, I added a die cut heart from the pattern paper and a fussy cut banner with the words "Thank you" and covered the word "thank" with the heart. I then added a handwritten "for" beside the heart. Although the next card does not include using the heart's background thin cuts, I wanted to include it since I used the Sweet Safari paper and the Every Thank You January stamp of the month to create it. I used 2 strips measuring 1 by 5.5 inches and the zip strips cut in half and trimmed when I applied it to the bottom and the top of the landscape mode card base. I then stamped the reverse of the large heart with candy apple ink and the word "You" in Sundance ink. Inside, I stamped the words "a ton" in the center of the right-hand side of the inside of the card. I then adhered the fussy cut elephant to the left of the heart using 3D foam tape. I want to thank you for joining me, and I hope that you learned something and that you are inspired. A list of the items used with links will be in the description box if you are interested in checking it out. Here are a couple of previous videos I've done that you may like to visit. Thank you for spending time with me. If you like this video, please click on the like button below and be sure to subscribe to see more of my videos. If you wish to be notified when I release new videos, be sure to ring the bell beside the subscribe button. Remember, keep memories, celebrate life.